Today it's Thomas' turn to take on the Volkswagen Touareg III, this all-new generation on the road here in Germany with motorway driving, city and also countryside driving. But of course, we'll also take a look at the exterior and the interior here on Autogefuehl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars. In full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! So with the front, the all-new Volkswagen Touareg has this wider front grille and also forming one unit together with those headlamps, which start with LED and optional matrix LED. And at the moment you can already see this daytime running light, which also looks pretty cool. So a very clean setup. This one here is the R-Line, also with a sportier lower bumper, also with a lot of chrome use. There's also an atmosphere or elegance trim and also a base trim. So different stylings you can pick there for both exterior and interior choices. The R-Line, of course, still the sporty one. 4.87 meters or 16 foot is the total length of the new Volkswagen Touareg. It's about 8 centimeters longer than the previous generation, so it hasn't changed so much. And it's still a little bit shorter than the siblings, which are also on the same platform, the Audi Q7, the Porsche Cayenne, the Lamborghini Urus, and also the Bentley Bentayga. So this one here, the smallest of the big ones. Rims from 18 to 21 inch. This is here 20 inch. It's a good compromise in between. Again, when would we call 20-inch rims a compromise? Well, maybe 19 would be even a better compromise than if you think about the cost for it and also the riding comfort. But you can also get, for example, the air suspension where you can lift the car up and down also for the off-road use. The R-Line comes with wheel arches painted in vehicle color here in the gray today. I personally prefer the other lines which have the plastic fender here because that's somehow SUV crossover look. I think it's more fitting, but it's personal taste. The R-Line badge right there and also a sportier bumper. Then the car appears flatter now, a little more condensed. And then this design line here at the shoulders is forming out to give it a bigger stance on the road. A technical improvement is that the new Touareg is 100 kilograms less in weight now in the new generation. But the biggest visual improvement, I think, is this new rear, because, I mean, I liked the design before in the previous generation, but this one now looks way sportier, elegant with the horizontally drawn tail lights, also with the cool LED signature in there. So if you then compare the previous generation and this one, the other one looks clumsy in comparison to this one, although it was already looking quite good. So I think really cool what they've done here, also with the big Touareg leathers. That really looks premium alike, and overall this is to me the best thing they've done here with the new generation. What do you think? So what do we have here? This is a 3-liter V6 TDI with 286 horsepower, 6.1 seconds only to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. And you will also get a 231 horsepower spec, so a little bit less, will be also less expensive. And then later you can also get a 4-liter V8 TDI with 421 horsepower, or on the petrol side a 3-liter V6 TSI with 340 horsepower. And also for China, or then also later in 2019, we'll have a 2-liter TSI plug-in hybrid with 267 horsepower. That is coming up as well. And all of the engines will have particle filters, petrol both and diesel, at least in Europe, and the diesels also the SCR cleaning. And now to the interior. At the inside of the doors we have this shiny black surfaces which Brian and me don't like that much, but you can also get, for example, a matte wood inlet. We showed you that also in a static studio video, you can check that out later. memory seats. And here also spot for bigger bottles, that's possible. Then an R-Line entry badge right there. You also get the base fabric seats, for example in Germany. It really depends on the market, but what is sure that in the higher trim levels, they don't offer so much alternatives to animal skin. And what I always find specifically cool with the Touareg, here the entry sill is basically at the same height than the floor mat, and that somehow makes a very special feeling when getting in and out of the car. So I want to show you something. Here, when I turn off the car, the seat moves back and the steering wheel up. It's not a new feature, but again, it's worth mentioning, good comfort feature that you can get in and out easily, which is again also very easily possible. And also this special entry, I just like you can also very easily remove the floor mats, for example. And we have this upright SUV seating position. You're really so much in control, have this sovereign view, and a lot of headroom still left. There's also panoramic roof available, which is not built in this very vehicle, but you will still have also a lot of headroom still left. I'm 1.86 m or 6'1", then you can compare it. Electric seat control right there, so very easily done, easy to find. And you know, a very used setup steering wheel wise, but the monitors here, this has changed a lot from the previous generation. Let me tell you more about that. So this is the interior overview. You can see it's leaned towards the driver here from this angle. And here in the top spec, there's just basically one huge area with the digital instruments, but it starts with analog ones, and on the right side with 9.2 inch, like we see in a Golf facelift in top spec. But then optional, this 15-inch screen. It's really massive. The question is, would you really go for it necessarily? I think you can leave it as an option. I will soon tell you why. But the first is really a wow effect. You can also get different trims for this one here. This just looks and feels a little bit cheap somehow. I don't know, maybe the wood trim would be more elegant in this case. And also, I've been cleaning this car with the microfiber tissue all over the place with the shiny glossy surfaces and the screens. That was really horrible. And here you can see, by the way, you can use this gesture function and all of this here, zoom out into that. You can use one finger, for example, for inside the menus and two fingers to swipe the whole picture. Then the steering wheel, we know it's basically an old one. It's not a new one. I think it's good that we not have the shiny black surfaces here. Left side ACC, right side to control the middle screen here. You can do, of course, stuff with the digital badges. Then this big shifting stick right there. In front we have some room, for example, for inductive charging of a phone, one USB slot there, then adaptive cup holders, well done, also for bigger ones. Just one real wheel or button here for the volume, that's still left. You can press it for mute or unmute, or roll for the sound. Cool sound with this optional sound system here, by the way. Then those ones are the controls for the driving modes and for the air suspension on the right. And below here we can put the smartphone. Another one, both those USB supplies work for the Apple CarPlay, so it doesn't really matter. And of course, you can put just random stuff there. Head-up display with current speed, allowed speed, and also, for example, assistance systems info, or also when you have the GPS running. Pretty cool to have it in your sight. Those digital instruments are also pretty fancy. You don't have to have them. You can also have the normal analog ones. I would be fine just with them, but here you're a little bit more flexible, for example, to show a GPS map right in the middle. So, or also, for example, the night assistance. So this is a night view here when it's really dark. Pretty cool also to have that fancy one, but maybe also one of the options you don't have to go for. And you can also access some options for the head-up display there. So now to this infotainment system again, using two fingers to swipe left and right and one finger, for example, for those smaller menus. The map here, wow, so impressive, either in this clear view, but also available in a satellite view. Looks massive and amazing. Also how fast it's reacting, really cool. But just for using it, I would rather keep it without a satellite view. You have a better overview. The temperature accessed right here with clicking, no turning knobs left while driving, not that good. But if you set it on the auto mode, you might not care that much, depends on. You can also change it like this, but not via voice command. Why? It was possible in the A6, for example. Then seat cooling here in 3 levels, a little bit too complicated as well, and seat heating here as well. But again, I think I would like to control the temperature with the voice command, but you can do it, for example, for for the GPS. That's possible. Air care is interesting. Then, if you activate air care, basically everything gets filtered once more again, and maybe some allergenic potential or dust is getting filtered once more. That's a very interesting function for sure. Here again, this home button, you can also switch the other home screens from that. Then the App Connect, how Apple CarPlay looks like this. It's rather small integration right there, but looks quite nice. That's totally fine. And there's so much more you can actually do with this infotainment system, and some it's a little bit overdone, I think, because, for example, I want to find in the options here setup, where can I change the language to English? I didn't find it. It wasn't with units, wasn't with time. I didn't find it. And in so far as Volkswagen infotainment system, I found everything I needed to find. Here it's getting complicated. And what I realized with the rear view camera is, I mean, it gives you a good overview still, but somehow the screen has been updated, but maybe not the camera hardware. And so on the very good high resolution screen, the camera picture now appears a little bit blurry. And one more shot here at the interior lighting. Very nice with those light strips. You can change color, but I really like the blue one here. And then I did find another menu right there, proximity sensor, and then there's a menu, and then you have basically another home menu. And there, when you then access the setup, you can also change the language. Too bad I realized that too late. So good for our German viewers today that they could check the menu all in German. But that's the way now, finally I found it. But I think, too many elements overall here, or what do you think? Now what about the rear bench as I would be driving? And what did I just do? Well, actually, I put the seat as I would be driving, and then I showed you this comfort feature because as soon as I open the door, the seat moves back and the steering wheel moves up. So I climbed between those seats to the rear bench and then out the car again. But we have a realistic figure here. So this seat here still have knee room left. Very comfortable upright seating position, plenty of headroom, and you'll still be fine when the panoramic roof is mounted. Here, by the way, a manual shade also for the rear door that's also available. This is really also pure comfort for sitting here in the rear. Then you can move this bench 16 centimeters in the front. This, of course, would be making sense for the trunk or then for the maximum knee room. And you can also, for example, a little bit steeper in the angle if you want to sit more upright, or if you want to have more this laying back position, just as you like it. It's an easy solution, and this is also the way when you want to either flip the seats down completely from here. It's easier to do it from the trunk, but you have to use this lever in the lower part to put the seats up then later, because they are attached really. You will also hear that, with the clicking sound, and then they are basically fixed, so you have to unleash them later on. Isofix on the outer parts of the seats here, so you can install 2 child seats then, and then you have this armrest with a cup holder on the inside. And very interesting is this middle socket. Well, in the middle part you cannot really sit because it's a classic all-wheel drive tunnel, so for tall adults that's not really pleasing. But you also have optionally a 4-zone AC, and in the lower part here another USB hub, or also for charging a laptop, for example. By the way that the seat stays in the position, I could have turned on the ignition, seat moves forward and close the door, and then go to the rear to show the real legroom, but that would have been too easy, so I instead just choose the way to climb inside the vehicle out. To open the hatch you can use the key, or you can also press here, or then also use this foot opening mechanism with swiping below, and nowadays they work all pretty fine. And when you close the hatch, you can also adapt the height, set menu, and then hold this button here for a few seconds, and then it will beep, and then you can set the height where it stops. And safety test here, great, good sensitivity. And on the inside, first of all, good that this one here, it automatically flips up and down together with the hatch. Very well done, but you can also just move it inwards. But, you know, oh, that shouldn't happen. Yeah, you see the lower part is not really railed that much. So I think I would also, you know, always leave it in this in this automatic position, then it's absolutely fine. So, but other than that, I mean, for this test, I want to show you everything, because here we can, on the left side and on the right side, extend it. So the normal setup will be 810 liters of capacity. And here we can push it down. You maybe also heard the sound. There we go. And then we can also load longer things through. Pretty cool, so very well usable. And this floor mat here, by the way, has two sides. This is a rubber side, and that's cool because when you put luggage on it, it's really sticky, and you can also clean it easily. And then there's also this fabric side if you want a more premium approach, let's say. So this is possible. I mean, you can also just pull it out completely and have the normal boot floor. So this is just an option. Also fixations possible left and right, and here you can also fit the replacement tire. This is a tire repair kit here at the moment, so you have both possibilities basically. And on the right side, of course, you can remove this one completely, and here you can then pull out the towing bar electronically. That's possible, like this. And on the right, you can also adapt the loading height if you want it a little bit lower, for example. It's also possible to put the car lower for loading things easier. Welcome to Thomas's driving lounge with the Volkswagen Touareg III. The driving part will be split in city driving, also some motorway, and we're also going higher speed, as we can do that here in Germany in the test today. And also some countryside, so all the different surroundings you might face. Off-road, of course, would be another one, but we don't have any off-road courses here nearby. We do have a special Touareg off-road video from the previous generation. That was really amazing. You have to check that one out. However, we hope we can do that at a later stage, that we can also take this one here on a, you know, real off-road tour. Today about the road driving experience, which will be the most crucial for most customers. The off-road terrain pack, I think it was called, by the way, had just a take rate of 1% in the previous generation. That's the reason why they decided to drop that one. However, you can still get some off-road equipment. I mean, if you have the air suspension, you can put the car higher. And there's also an optional, you know, guard, underfloor guard available. So you can put some options to the car which you could have with the off-road terrain package before, but there's no off-road gear reduction. So, but focusing here now on the road, rolling with just 50 kilometers an hour. And the first crucial thing you notice is it's a really silent car. It has been before, but this has also been improved, so it's super silent here, this ride. And also the air suspension is giving you this rather floating ride. However, we also have this new tech put in this vehicle, like the rear axle steering and also this anti-tilt function, which is basically working against the G-forces a little bit. So we'll experience those, especially then when we drive a little bit faster. However, when you steer the car in the city at slower speeds, you do realize some of that rear axle steering, because the car here, when you do some, you know, slow speed slalom, it works just 5 degrees across the front axle, and that makes the car more agile. It feels here, when you're going slower, it feels as you would be steering a car with a shorter wheelbase. So shorter wheelbase is being faked, so to say, and you have 1 meter less turning circle. That's of course really crucial for a full-size SUV. Full-size SUV for our European taste, of course. It's pretty interesting. I really like, you know, this is a great option to go for. It is expensive, yes, but if there are some really useful options for this vehicle, then the rear axle steering is one, because again, it makes the car easier to steer, easier to park in and out, maybe in your basement garage as well. Have a lot of use for that, and also when especially when driving slower. This anti-tilt function we will later experience when we drive a little bit faster. Then this will make more sense, definitely. So comparing it to the previous generation, you do still feel that it's a Touareg. It has, let's say, some kind of basic characteristic that can hardly be transported. I mean, it's this sovereign driving feeling, but at the same time very refined. There are some bigger SUVs which are maybe feel huge to drive, but this one here, at the same time, although you have a lot of room around you, it feels very spacious. You sit so upright and comfortable. Definitely one of the most comfortable rides you can have. But at the same time, it remains quite maneuverable. The only thing is, it's also the basic building style, and the siblings are the same. When you look to the front, everything is quite voluminous as for the front hood. So you have to get used to it, that when you're driving down somewhere, maybe basement, garage, ramp, then you see nothing, nothing at all. But when you have something on the wheel, on the same level, then of course, as you have this upright seating position, you have also quite good overview. Also, when you look to the sides or to the rear, although it's a big car, you can see where the car is ending. They are not wasting so much room just for design purposes, so it gives you a good feeling. And also, if you compare it to the other siblings, which are meanwhile really a lot: Audi Q7, the Porsche Cayenne, the Lamborghini Urus, and the Bentley Bentayga. This one here is the smallest, and it also feels, the sportiest is for sure the Cayenne, but I would still say that this one here feels most agile. I think there's, to me, let's make a differentiation between sporty and agile, because sporty would be more acceleration and also the suspension made stiffer. That's not the case here if you compare it to the Cayenne, but somehow it feels more agile because the car is just shorter, and that makes, a very positive driving feeling if you compare it to the little bit bulkier feeling you have with some of the siblings of this vehicle. And that's also why I do prefer the Touareg of all those, because it's the cheapest in price. It is big enough, it doesn't waste any room, any space. At the same time, it's also among the shortest of those, and you don't have any disadvantages of that or something, So that's a crucial point to me. The steering, by the way, in those low angles, it could give a little bit more feedback. We'll also scroll through the driving mode soon. But other than that, it's conveys a very positive feeling, because you don't have to steer that much. So it's rather progressive, as we also know from other Volkswagen vehicles. But you don't feel lost or feel that it would be super artificial or something. At the moment, I've been driving in the eco mode. Here, this V6 diesel, 286 horsepower, and is also very silent. You don't really hear it's a diesel, especially when you're running at lower RPM. Those guys could have a little bit of distance here. Yeah, I mean, one of my traffic tips is really keep distance to the cars in front of you. That's the best insurance. So many people are driving that close that just have something has to happen, then you're directly running on the car in front of you. That doesn't make any sense. So in this eco mode I'm driving at the moment, throttle input is being reduced, or to save some more fuel. So far, consumption, we had also the same engine in the Audi A6 recently, and we scored just above 7 liters there with good driving. Let's take it that way. You can also bring it to that one here to just over 7 liters. If you hammer it more and also higher speed motorway, it will go up to about 9 liters on 100 kilometers of diesel consumption. And I'll also watch this ride we have here at the moment, and also state then later with what we scored for this ride. And here also we're doing some mixed conditions. also some different speeds and stuff. And so, also when you have the E or efficiency mode or eco mode, then you can also let the car roll a little bit more. That's good. You can always use this jog here and then go, for example, to comfort, which won't make such a difference. The rolling will be a little bit reduced. You have more engine brake, for example. Then you have a normal mode where you get some more throttle input, or in the sport mode where the car shifts down a gear more easily and also turns up the RPM higher. However, you can also see it's this S shifting mode then. You can also just pick that one at the gear lever. There's a huge automatic gear lever. Or you could always use the shift pedals here to drop down a gear, maybe accelerate a little bit harder on a motorway and then shift up again, or hold the right pedal to go back to the automatic mode. And there's also then individual mode where you can, for example, change the steering as, for example, in the sport mode. See, guy behind us thinks, no, I'm drunk. Yeah, in the sport mode you get a little bit more feedback from the steering wheel, but it's not super crucial, the difference. And then there's off-road and snow, and for off-road you can then pick again, sand and gravel and stuff. And also the car gets a little bit higher. But as you drive faster then again, it will automatically drop. That's also happening in the normal modes. When you drive faster, that the car will drop in height a little bit for better wind efficiency and also more stable handling. And you can also manual control with the right jog here next to me, so you can put the car down or up again, depending on what you want. Usually you just leave it in the auto mode. It would just be crucial when you're driving off-road that you use the maximum height then in the off-road mode. We also have several assistance systems heading on now to the motorway as well. We can also use the ACC, they call it active cruise control. I like to call it adaptive cruise control because it adapts to the car in front of you, and you can set the speed here on the steering wheel, and the distance to the car in front of you is being kept. We can also better test it on the motorway very soon. So when we, for example, going here now in this corner, maybe a little bit faster. Wow, cool. This is a big SUV and it doesn't tilt at all. So this anti-tilt function is doing a great job. Wow, that was really cool. I think if you pick this tech feature, that's probably the biggest difference in driving from the previous generation. So, in this agile driving situation, it comes closer to a Cayenne then. So maybe if you drive a previous generation Cayenne and then this one will maybe even be the sportier one. I mean, this V6 diesel here, although it doesn't sound like, it has less than 300 horsepower. Doesn't sound that fast, but it has massive torque. Also, for example, for towing, you can have 3.5 tons of towing capacity there. This goes in 6.1 seconds to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. That is massive in the acceleration. You don't really feel it at lower speeds. So when you start to push the throttle, you don't have this spontaneous reaction you would have from a petrol or from even from an electric engine or something, even more. But then again, when the car got going a little bit and the turbo sets in, yeah, it can take maybe a second. AJ also talked about this turbo lag. But then as soon as the power sets in, it's really brutal. So I could show you that, for example, I go to the S shifting mode. Now we're getting on this motorway. I just wait until the road is straight that we get a realistic figure. And then when I go from 60 to 100. That was it. And you see, when you're in this S shifting mode, it doesn't take so long for the car to shift down first and then for the turbo to set in. But, the feeling you get is sometimes, that the car really needs to get rolling, but then it comes massively. By the way, there's also an active lane keeping assist. It's not meant to take your hands off the steering wheel, but I just wanted to show you what the steering wheel is doing. So here it's keeping me in the lane. Again, it's not a super autonomous feature. Also tells me now, please take the steering. But when I keep the hands on the steering, it's maybe, let's say, more relaxing or something. The car is assisting you a little bit, and at some point you can maybe stay more fit when you don't have to concentrate that much on those things, or maybe just look ahead what's happening there. So, why not? And also I've set the cruise control now. Also watching all those information on the head-up display that I can keep my line of sight directly on the road. That's of course really handy, so a good feature right there. And again, wow, 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour cruising on the motorway, and it feels like standing still almost, because the car is so silent and so sovereign to drive. And you have, in comparison, for example, to the big sedans, you still have this upright seating position, which is a better travel position, especially if you're a little bit taller, or if you have sometimes problems with your lower back, so with a lumbar area, then this can really help to have this upright seating position. And I do agree to some problems SUV cause, and some people criticize the SUVs maybe for taking more traffic space, for being less fuel efficient and stuff, and that's partially true. But if you compare it to equally as big cars in the lower sedan segment, I can understand that people go for SUVs. I would do that too, because I just tend to get back pain in normal cars, because they don't have an optimum seating position. It's just bogus, the seating position in a normal car. I mean, if you would rebuild a car from scratch, no one would ever design a normal car seat anymore in that way. I mean, when you're sitting at the living room table, you could sit in those seats here, but not in a sedan seat. No one would do that. And there's a reason for that. So this is, of course, the big advantage then here. And I mean, if we look at fuel consumptions, they often just depend on the engine and not necessarily on the building on the outside. So we don't have really much higher consumption scored here with the SUVs. So that's definitely also very interesting. So we get off the motorway here. Again, super stable also when we are at higher speeds. That's really cool. Now we're getting on the brakes a little bit. Yeah, good braking performance. Gives you a very good feeling also for the brake. And again, remember from our recent safety driving episode, hammer the brakes if you have to. Don't be shy. And stay on the brakes in emergency situations. Don't release them. If you're interested more in those driving tips, then you should really check out this driving episode, safety driving episode. That was really helpful, really cool, good experience also for me, for sure. So now we're getting on the motorway again to show you a little bit more acceleration, and we also will accelerate out, keep it at higher speeds. I can also tell you something more about the stability there. Here again, how agile it is due to this rear axle steering. It's really fantastic. So now we go to the sport mode. Come on, go to the sport mode. I'll go a little bit less in speed now at about 50 kilometers, and then just go through. So that's 190 in kilometers now, so 120 miles now or something. Wow, really super silent still. I mean, you do hear a difference, of course, to driving 100. But also heavier. I mean, you couldn't hear the engine at all, so it was also very refined, insulated sound. And I mean, we're driving basically a cupboard on the street, so it's still remaining very silent. Really cool. So great performance also, and really a great refined feeling from that engine. Of course, all-wheel drive, a permanent all-wheel drive we get here, so it's not one of those fake all-wheel drives. So this is still the real deal you get here with this vehicle. Also a torque converter gearbox. So, and now a little bit less speed. For example, put in the cruise control again, or the normal driving mode. Here we go again. Now I can also set the cruise control to the allowed speed. Then the car is keeping me exactly where I want to. So this vehicle is definitely very impressive. Would I want to, let's say I'm driving the current Touareg, would I want to switch it immediately? I mean, now you can also see how it looks at night, or in this tunnel view, also with the illumination here. Pretty interesting, very cool lighting strip there. I mean, the so far Touareg generation was also a very good and refined vehicle. I wouldn't say it's such a huge difference that they say, sell your current one, go for this one, do it now. I think you can really relax because, your old Touareg will also do just fine. So there's no hurry to switch, I would say. Interesting is, of course, when you want more infotainment stuff, as we see here, but as I said earlier, you don't really need the highest infotainment trim stuff. It can also be, the question is really if it's an advantage or not. We discussed that earlier. And of course, this new technology features with the anti-tilting and the rear extra steering, that's definitely helping, so technology-wise. And a little bit more refined than maybe this, engine sound installation-wise. That's also pretty. Yeah, that's looking a little slowly for me, So, yeah, definitely feel all the single elements are better now than in the previous generation. But still, you get this. You somehow get the same Volkswagen Touareg character, and I think that's also a good thing. So existing customers will have a smooth transition, and you always have to think about who is the number one target group for a new vehicle. It's the existing customers of the very same model, and you will be satisfied. You will notice different upgrades to those different elements. But you won't be shocked that it would be a different car or like a super revolutionary step or something. And I think that's also a good approach they're taking. By the way, when I was starting the very fast acceleration now, I did not experience any major lag or something. So you can see when you are in the sport mode also. So there's even obviously a difference when you're in just the S shifting mode, but then also in the sport mode, maybe they changed something, engine-wise there from the electronics. We didn't experience any major lag, so there was immediate acceleration that felt really sports car-like, I have to say. Of course, due to the air suspension, which is evening out a little bit, and also due to the all-wheel drive, it still felt somehow smooth with the acceleration, but very sporty. So this turbo lag often. We also had it. I checked it up. In a very technical sense, also at one point. And sometimes is what you would experience as a turbo lag is more like car preparing, also with downshift and stuff. When you're, for example, in the normal driving mode, then this automatic downshifting time can sometimes be experienced as a massive turbo lag, although it's maybe not the turbo lag, but more the downshifting, for example. So you always have to differentiate between that, for sure. I mean, well, this big screen, I'm really lucky I don't have to touch it that often here while driving, because, when you, for example, controlling the temperature, maybe not the best, and showed you also earlier that climate control would be cool, as I did in the Audi A6 while driving, but this car doesn't like that. Pretty strange. So that would have been, very useful, and they have the technology also in the corporation, so why don't they use it? Very nice, by the way, this new frameless mirror gives me good view to the rear, and is still a very elegant approach also for the interior. So it's really one of the most comfortable cars I know. It really feels great and refined while driving. Yeah, I mean, at some point you could say maybe a little bit over-engineered here and there, especially infotainment-wise. But there's, you really have to search long to find other vehicles that match this kind of perceived quality they have there. And if you then think that you're basically paying for rather shit. Oh, that's a pigeon in the middle of the road. I think we gotta save that somehow. So let me just think what we can do, and I'll catch you later. So guys, I'm back. That poor little fellow in the middle of the road, and you know, on both sides, cars with the 100 kilometers passing. Wow, that must be super frightening. I hope she still made it. So what I did is, you know, I called the emergency ambulance number or for the firefighters, and I mean, it's very dangerous for everyone. Maybe someone, you know, also tries to, you know, steer right or left or brake immediately or something, and it can be very dangerous, you know, both for the animals and for humans. And so they said they would take care of that. And I mean, it doesn't make much sense that I block their work than they are now. So when I continue with my work and let them do theirs, I mean, for myself, you know, it's very dangerous. You know, you can't just stop in the middle of the motorway. So you have to call the experts to do that. You know, with also the sirens and stuff. And yeah, I mean, I just probably mail the press office later or tomorrow and ask them if you know, if everything went well. And maybe they always file the reports, you know, on the several incidents, and so there must actually be a report. So I'll just ask for it, and hopefully I know that everything went well, and maybe this poor little fella was still alive and made it. I just hope so now. So always when you see something like that on the road, try to help. That's very important, because you know, so many people just blindly follow their line and just don't care about anything else. And so it's, you know, it's always good to do something. Because you might say, you know, it's just one life, you know, but to those that are being saved, you know, it matters everything. And the same also counts, you know, you may be also seeing from time to time those tests they've done, you know, when an accident is, you know, at the side of the road or so, maybe a road over car, how high the percentage is of people that just, you know, just drive through and maybe don't care. They even, you know, staged some stuff, you know, with actors and maybe bleeding at the head and stuff, and still so many people were just, you know, passing by, like, you know, someone else will take care. Probably not someone else will take care of that. So it's of course always crucial that you find a safe spot, you know, to get off the road or something, to take care of something, and that you call, you know, the ambulance or firefighters with the numbers in your respective countries. The important thing is that someone starts doing something. It's better than, you know, if too many people do something, then no one. Because there's also like this psychology phenomenon that people always think, you know, someone else will take care of that, you know. And then there were also some famous experiments where just, you know, so many people were watching and no one did anything. So that's our small emergency X-course. Now back to this vehicle, because we have some more rather calm countryside roads. And again, the vehicle is performing very well. So also still got a lot of comfort left here, so I could drive this car really for hours and hours and hours. The only thing that is annoying me driving-wise is, you know, this active steering assist, which you can deactivate. That's for sure. To me, it's a little bit too intrusive somehow, you know. So I go to assistant systems here, the lane assist. So I'll deactivate the lane assist. It's good that it's possible in such a way. Even better, it's maybe at Mercedes, where you have at the left side of the steering wheel those several buttons there. Then you can just click it and deactivate some of the assistance systems. However, if you want to have a little bit less buttons, also possible to do it here in this this menu. Then also went quite quick. And to me, an infotainment or software menu is always very well oriented when you could find that intuitively and you didn't have to search, you know, for hours and hours to reach it. We had some other examples there, you know, earlier, but in this case, this was very intuitively done and also pretty cool. So, still to me, one of the most comfortable and sovereign and refined vehicles in the SUV, in the big SUV segments here on the market. Also proves it here in the driving segment. And the conclusion for today with the Volkswagen Touareg III. For sure, if you compare it to the previous generation, you have some little improvements. You feel it's a little bit more refined, even more silent on the road. Then you have this technology upgrades you can optionally pick with the rear axle steering, for example, and this anti-tilt function. You do realize that's definitely a step further ahead technology-wise. But as the previous generation was already such a good SUV, you cannot really say you have to get the new one immediately. So, you know, that's the problem of very good cars. And still, I think this is also still one of the best big SUVs you can get because, yeah, I mean, it is notable in the price, yes, but the other ones that are basically sharing the same technology are even more expensive. So this one is, you know, among the lot you can actually compare, still one of the best. And even though it doesn't have an optional off-road terrain package, it will still remain off-road capable. So you can pump up the air suspension, and I hope at a later stage we'll be able to do that as well. As for the consumption, we actually scored about 8 liters on 100 kilometers here today. That's between 7 and 9, as I said earlier, so also a pretty realistic value, and for such a big car, also still okay. And in Europe, this then might still make sense to stick with the diesel then, because the consumption with the petrol engine will be even higher. And also later, looking forward to the plug-in hybrid that will also be coming with this vehicle. We'll keep you updated with all of the developments and also for sure some other Touareg versions here in the future. And also tune in to our other reviews we already have with the Touareg, with the new generation, and also to the sibling cars and the competitors. What do you think? Share your opinion on this vehicle down in the comment section below.